today we are finally going to use Procreate to create what you see here. So we're going to take a picture of our hand, add it into Procreate, and then we're going to draw on top of this. You don't need a stylus, but it is easier for me personally to use one, but it'll work with your fingers to draw all the lines as well. So we're going to start out by actually taking a picture of our hand. So if you go pose your hand in some way that isn't just flat, and take a picture of it with your camera. I'm going to show you how to add this photo into Procreate, or at least one way to add this photo into Procreate. And then to do the lines on top of this. So you see that I have multiple what are called layers here. So first it's just like the photo of the hand, and then we're going to break down the hand into smaller, kind of simpler shapes, and then we're going to do the cross contour lines on top of that. Now if I get rid of my photo, which you can see that I can do, I can have just a cross contour line drawing. So it's kind of a process to get us to this point, but it's totally worth it and it looks super cool to me. So we're going to start by opening Procreate up. And when you open Procreate, you'll be sent into what's called the gallery. If this is your first time opening Procreate, it might ask you if you want to see a tutorial. The tutorial is great. You can always look it up on YouTube, or you can try and rewatch it later. But for today, we're going to go up at the top and we're going to hit, let's see if I can get the thing. We're going to hit this button right here. So that little plus sign is going to start a new file for us. So I'm going to hit that little plus sign, it'll open this up. There's a bunch of options that come preloaded into here. I always just say screen size because that's pretty consistent and it doesn't really matter. Once you hit the screen size, it'll take you to this page, and it's just a blank canvas. So I wanted to walk us through all the different parts of this if you haven't used Procreate before. So we'll start with these guys up at the top here. So first, you have your brushes. So your brush library really lets you do a lot of things. It comes, again, preloaded with all these different options for you. So I often use the sketching one because it looks like a pencil. You can see there's HB pencils, 6B pencils. There's a bunch of different kinds of drawing tools. There's painting, airbrushing, all of these things, and they're really fun to experiment with. Like I said, for me, I'll stick to the pencil ones for now. They have an interesting kind of texture to them, where if you look in, you can kind of see these speckles. So those are the ones that I like to use to give you the idea that I'm drawing. Alright, so after your brush library, next to that is your smudge tool. Again, it'll look like your brush library. Your smudge tool will let you blur things out. So you can see me pretend it's your finger or a paper towel and it's blending things. Again, you can pick which ones you want to use, so that's a really fun tool for when we're blending later. Next to that, we have your eraser tool. Again, self-explanatory, it's an eraser. It'll take you once again to the brush library, and that might seem a little bit weird to you that your eraser comes with all these options. So if I were to draw something with my brush, not in the pencil, and I take my eraser, right now I set it to painting and then I pick the round brush. For me, that's the most solid. You can pick different things with different textures to them. So if I picked something else, you can see that it erases it in a different way with different textures to it. So play around with that, see what you like. Like I said, I like to hit in painting and pick round brush. It's just the sharpest to me. It lets me play around the way that I want to. Alright. Next we have what are called the layers. And this is the most important thing to me for an art program is that it has layers in it. So layers, and I'll go through these today, are going to be really important. It'll already start with like a background color and one layer. So with the background color, you can choose what you want your background to be. So it's automatically set to white usually, and then you can play around with what color you want your black background. Black also might look nice. If you want something to be easy on your eyes, then gray looks good. We're the most used to having white backgrounds, like white paper, so I'll usually stick to a white background to start out with. I'll show you how layers work in a little bit, but we're gonna just move along. Our last one at the top there is our color picker. So up here, if I click on that little circle, you can see that it gives you colors. There are at the bottom a bunch of different options, so just look out right there. Oops. So right down there you can see that there's different ways to view things. So you can have a bunch of palettes that like have these pre-selected colors for you. You can deal with things in like value. You can look at this very fun one, which always gives you the opposite color if you set it to that. I'm always in classic. To me, it's the easiest. I can slide to pick like the base color, and then I can kind of move it around from here. So that's what I like to do, and then I have a history and some pre-selected ones that I just use pretty often. So that's my favorite view mode. If you like, Disk also has those same like history and like color chips for you to choose from. So if you like this round version better, it's also great. I just like the control that I have with this kind of larger square. Alright, so now that we've gotten into all of the top bars, I'm going to deal with this side right here. So here at the top we have size. So this determines how big my brush is, or how big my smudging is, or how big my eraser is. So if I draw something with this size versus me taking it down, this is me drawing the same thing, it gets a little bit smaller. I can increase it all the way and make it a little bit larger. Some of the brushes get like really small, some of them get really big. It all kind of depends. You should be able to like have a preview of how big or how small your stuff is, so you can see like, oh, it's going to be that big or it's going to be that small. So play around with the size. Usually I keep it on the lower end while we're drawing. If I'm coloring something, then I might make it a little bit bigger. Next, over here we have the opacity or transparency. Alright, so for transparency, I can set it all the way up. That means it's 100% opaque. So you see that as I draw here, it's completely like not see-through at all. But if I bring that down and I start to draw, you see that it's more see-through. If I take it all the way down, like it'll show me that I'm drawing, but nothing will happen because it's like completely invisible at that point. So if you're ever trying to draw something and it's ending up invisible, you double check that your opacity is all the way up as it should be. If you have a stylus, sometimes it'll register how hard you're drawing. So there are times where I can draw really light and then I press harder and it gets lighter and darker depending on how hard I press. That only works if you have a stylus. Specifically an Apple Pencil is what it likes the most. So if you really like this, then it's good to invest in an Apple Pencil, but you really don't need to deal with that because you can control the transparency here. It's just more convenient if you want to use Procreate in the future. You have undo and redo buttons. So I'm going to clear this screen for you real quick. You have your undo button right there and your redo button right there. So I'm going to draw something and then I'll press my undo button and I can press my redo button to do it. You also have shortcuts. So if I want to undo something, you can double tap. So here's me drawing again. If I use 2 fingers, you can see that it can go away. If I want to redo something, then I'm going to triple tap, so 3 fingers to tap. So I'm gonna redo things by doing that. So first I have to undo some stuff. So I'll draw heart, heart, undo, undo, redo, redo. So hard to see because you can't actually see my fingers doing that, but just so you know, that's a triple tap. All right, we're almost done here. Let me switch colors for you and we'll deal with the top menu. So the first button is gallery. That will just take you back to your original screen. If you press on gallery, if you exit out of here, you can no longer redo or undo things. Like it'll just save it and that's what it'll work with. So be careful when you're going back into gallery that you don't want to make any more changes to what this is. Usually like if you don't want to go back in history and undo something. So be aware of that. Gallery is kind of like our home page. Next we have what are called actions. So the wrench tool is your actions, and that has a bunch of different options for you. This is the tool that we'll use the most often. And there's obviously a lot of things in there. We're not going to go over them all. You have what are called adjustments. We'll deal with that later. Selection, and then this select and kind of move tool. I think it's called the transform tool. So these we aren't going to really deal with today. We're going to do some of the actions that you're going to see, but that's really it. So now that we have this, I'm going to go over your layers again. So if you click into layers up at the top here, you should see that you have a layer 1 and a background color. If you have been drawing alongside me or you've experimented, you're going to swipe the layer towards the left and you're going to hit clear so you have a nice blank canvas to work on. Next, you're going to go up at the top there and you are going to click on your actions. We're going to add in that photo that we put in earlier. So you're going to make sure out of all of these options that you're on add and that you insert a photo. It'll ask you if you're allowed to use your photos if this is the first time maybe. But you're going to take a picture of your hand and you're going to select it. Right now there's these kind of like little blue dots all over and the dot dot dot. That means that I've selected this and it's letting me transform it as much as I want to. So I can make it bigger or smaller, I can move it around and twist it. I don't need you to really do any of those things unless your hand picture is really small, then you might want to make it bigger. I'm gonna reset that so you can see all these options at the bottom. You can either fit it to screen or just reset it so that it fills the whole thing. That's all we really need to do, and we'll deal with how to transform things later. But I'm done now, so I can just click on the arrow again. You can really click anywhere and it'll get rid of that. So you can zoom in the way that you normally zoom in or zoom out. But what I want to do is I want to draw on top of this. But I want to draw on top of this without ruining my picture. I want to have like a separate drawing. So right now, if I draw on top of this, let's say like I draw a heart, whatever. And it's like, I don't really need that to be here, so I'll erase it. You see that I'm also erasing the picture. And I don't want to do that. I want to have a separate drawing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up at the top and click my layers. And I'm going to hit the plus sign. And that plus sign is going to create a new layer for me. I'm going to quickly name these because I want to stay organized. It's not that difficult to stay organized even if you don't name things, but it does make it easier. So I will check every now and then that you're being organized. So my first one, I'm going to rename hand. So you saw me just click on it. So I click on the picture and it'll pop up this menu and I hit rename at the top. It was really easy. So same with layer 2. If you click on it, it'll open this entire menu for you. You're going to hit rename. And on here, I'm going to name this shapes. So now, if I draw on top of here, so I'm going to draw a bunch of hearts while I'm on my second layer. So I'm on this layer called shapes. You know that I'm on it because it's blue. That's the one that's selected. So now that I'm on this and I've drawn on it, if I want to erase, so now I have my eraser tool, you can see I'm not erasing anything that's under it. I'm only erasing the things that are on this layer. So this is the most important and the strongest tool that I think an art program should have, is a layers tool. So I can draw something without affecting other parts of it.